Everybody, Kris here with First Look Gamers, and going right back into it with the Division. I'll be telling you some things you'll want to know about the Dark Zone. Now, the Dark Zone is a walled off, contaminated area of the map that has a PvP element added to what the game already has provided us. What I mean by that is, this is the first place you will run into other players who aren't part of your team. And let me tell you, anyone can be hostile. So when you go into the Dark Zone, you'll automatically be placed into a bracket based upon your level. Now, the brackets line up like this. It's 1 through 14, 15 through 19, 20 through 24, 25 through 29, and level 30. You're definitely going to have more success if you go in at the higher level, more towards a higher level range of your bracket. Obviously, if you're going in at level 1, you're gonna have a hard time. So make sure you try to go in there with at least some experience outside of the Dark Zone first. The Dark Zone is broken up into several subzones that you can go into as you level in the game. As you see here, each zone has a range of levels, and that's just letting you know what level mobs you should be expecting to encounter there. Alright, so let's get into it. This is how you're going to find the mobs and the gear that you're looking for. Now, if you go into the map, you'll see different landmarks, and this is where the mobs actually spawn. Now, if you notice, you look, there's a color shade on the landmarks. Now, when it's purple, that's letting you know that there is, in fact, mobs there. And generally, those areas have a boss there, which is definitely worth your time to fight, because they have some of the better gear in the entire Dark Zone. Now, if the landmark is shaded gray, that means that area has been cleared, so don't even waste your time going over there because it's going to be empty. Now, the bosses are generally, they're surrounded by other elites, and it's a tough fight, so I wouldn't recommend taking on a boss just straight up on your own. You're gonna get messed up. It's no fun. I mean, they can be pretty mean. However, when you do finally bring down the boss, they drop a couple different things. Now, they'll drop some loot, and normally it's well worth your time because you'll get some good, like, higher end gear or weapons. And they also drop what are known as Dark Zone keys, and these open up chests throughout the map. And these chests also are worth your time finding as long as you have keys, because they have some pretty nice gear in them as well. But another thing to keep in mind, though, is these chests require a certain Dark Zone rank. So you're going to want to make sure that you get your Dark Zone rank up pretty quickly. And I'll go into that a little bit more because there's different ways you can do that. But generally, fighting the mobs and going against the bosses is the best way to do that. Kind of laying low and going under the radar and just experimenting with the player versus environment elements that they have there. So, you got the bosses, you got the gear, and you have Dark Zone keys. So, you know what those do. Now, the Dark Zone rank is an interesting thing because you can actually lose XP in the Dark Zone, and you lose Dark Zone rank. So how does that happen? Well, if you die in the Dark Zone, you lose a slight amount of Dark Zone XP, and you lose some Dark Zone funds, which you use at the vendors that are in the Dark Zone, which I'll go into later. So you're gonna want to make sure that you go in there and you try your best not to die. Now, if you're not going rogue, it's not a big deal because you don't lose too much. However, if you go rogue, that's when you really lose a lot of Dark Zone rank. And so here's how that works. When you go in there and you run across other players, what happens is they're non-hostile. Generally, most of the time, they're non-hostile. And it'll show you, you'll see the player, and there's nothing to worry about so long as they're not attacking you. But if they have a skull over the head, they're going rogue, which means they've attacked someone, and they could very well attack you. And so you got to defend yourself. And you know what? Killing rogues has an extremely nice reward. You get a good amount of Dark Zone funds to spend on vendors. You get a good amount of Dark Zone XP, and there's really no risk involved at all. Now, if you go rogue and you die, you are putting an extreme amount of risk out there, because if you die as a rogue, you lose you lose a lot more XP, you lose a lot more funds, and well, another thing I left out about dying in the Dark Zone is, yeah, if you have gear and you die, some of it falls onto the ground and can be looted. So that's another reason people go rogue. They see you have gear, they're going after you. And you know what? If you're going rogue and you have gear, best believe you're on the map with a skull over your head, people are gunning for you. So going rogue, high reward, because you get a lot of points for killing other players and XP and whatever gear they drop, but you create a lot of enemies, so just be on the lookout. And earlier I was talking about the vendors that you'll find throughout the Dark Zone. Now they are located in checkpoints and safe houses that are scattered throughout the area, and that's where you'll buy some of the better gear you'll find in the game. Now this costs Dark Zone funds, and the gear has a Dark Zone rank attached to whether or not you can buy it. This is also where you'll find the resupply boxes. So if you need ammo, medkits, or grenades, this is the place to go. Now, okay, so you have your gear now, and you want to get it outside of the Dark Zone. Well, like I said earlier at the beginning, it's a contaminated area, which means any gear you pick up from the bosses or killing other players is, or even the mobs too, it's contaminated. So you can't just walk out of the Dark Zone with it. You have to extract it. So there's different zones in the map that are allocated for just extractions. My recommendation is try not to go to one that's so crowded, because things can get pretty hairy there real quick. So like most of the time, I would say look for a place that's a little bit less inhabited, and look out for other players, because if they don't have gear on them and they're in an extraction zone, just think, what are they doing there? So, you know, they have a reason. Are they trying to take your gear? Who knows? It's the paranoia of the Dark Zone with other players around. So, you know, be careful and just find some good cover and hold down and wait for that chopper to arrive so you can get your gear out of there. And once you do get your gear out, it's going to go into your stash box back at your base of operations or any of the safe houses outside of the Dark Zone. So that's where you'll find it. And oh, one more thing. Those choppers have a limited amount of extractions that they can take. So if there's a lot of players in the area, another thing is you might not have a chance to get your gear on that chopper. So I believe that's about it. These are things you need to know about the Dark Zone. Make sure you guys go ahead and like, comment, subscribe on our videos, and I'll see you next time.